Thanks, Madam Chair. Mr. Administrator, good to see you.
Yes, sir.
I don't want you to forget about the University of Colorado that has produced a lot of astronauts as well.
Very true.
So, obviously, you've been involved with a lot more appropriations than I have over the years, but I think the challenge, the competition with China, potentially Russia, offers us some opportunities. Not to really mix civilian and military, but to find some other pockets that might want to support our space program and all the phases of it. So, for me, I don't want to see this as a zero-sum game, that human exploration takes from Earth science and Earth science takes from planetary science and everything takes away from heliophysics. And I do think the fact that there is some serious competition now will give you a lot of opportunities, and I just want to raise my hand. I'd be willing to work with armed services or anybody else to help you have the budgets that will allow us to be preeminent, continue to be preeminent in the space program, because I already gave you one of these bumper stickers, and this committee, I drive them crazy because I talk about getting our astronauts to Mars. Amen. Getting our astronauts to Mars by 2033. And as you said, the orbital mechanics make that a very good time to do it. Saves a lot of travel time. So can you explain to us how you see the Artemis program helping facilitate us getting to Mars by 2033 or in that time frame?
Congressman, I don't think the United States wants to be second in anything. And although we were on the surface of the moon about 55 years ago, we said we're going back, and it is part of a greater mission to go further, and that's to Mars. But mindful that we are seeing competitors that are being very aggressive. That, I think, is going to create the juices flowing. And I believe competition is always good. And that means we better be trained and disciplined and ready.
So you've mentioned, and I think you've answered it in a couple questions, having NASA, in effect, participate in the infrastructure bill, that it be part of the jobs plan or something. How do you see, and I agree with you, by the way, how do you see NASA fitting into, say, an infrastructure plan?
NASA, at a minimum, has $5.4 billion of desperate infrastructure needs. The building down at Michoud, which is a part of the Marshall Space Center, but this located in New Orleans, that's where we're assembling the first stage of the SLS rocket. The building has holes in the roof. And so it's emblematic of infrastructure that has not, and it's not just NASA, it's everything. Look at the roads and the bridges. NASA has a need for that. And if you all do a jobs bill, I hope you would consider NASA in that jobs bill.
And I think you're going to find this committee, despite them, me making them all crazy with some of the things I have to say, we work very well together. And I think you're going to get a lot of support from us, both sides of the aisle, in whether it's an infrastructure issue or putting the building blocks into place to get to Mars. Let me ask you one last question. Heliophysics. So we passed a space weather bill signed by President Trump last year. I was a little bit disappointed to see sort of the heliophysics part of the budget reduced in this year, just as we're getting this new legislation in place, and would like to see that plussed up in some fashion or another. Any comment?
But that heliophysics is part of a budget that was increased by $300 million. That's the science part of the budget. And planetary science is a big part of that. And we've got to understand a lot of the stuff on heliophysics, because when we send astronauts back to the moon, you have a solar explosion on the moon and all that radiation's coming. We've got to have a way to know in advance, well in advance, to save our astronauts that they don't get fried. Same thing on the long trip to Mars. We've got to be able to understand what's coming. And on Earth climate science, we need to better understand the effects of the sun with regard to delicate measurements of our climate in order to be better stewards of our planet.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. Thanks, Madam Chair. I yield back.